ACM Hajka CMCIAT. You know, not long ago, when I started really looking at the true facts of what the destruction that fossil fuels has in our communities and our lands and to the world, looking at the Alberta tar sands and how it's one of the biggest industrial projects in the world, where it takes 2 tons of earth to get 1 barrel of oil. You know how big a barrel is. 3.5 barrels of water to get 1 barrel. They're getting 1 million barrels a day. There's 13 pipelines coming out of there, where those owners are making $71 million a day. And they're already getting $3 billion in subsidies from the Canadian government. And they're already making $71 million a day. And I thought, geez, look at what we're up against. We're a small nation of people when we started. There's only a little bit over 400 of us. Then I even looked back to where we came from, and only 6 generations ago we're down to 13 people from 15,000. So I looked at the healing that still needed to happen, and I looked at how we needed to come together. How not only are we going up against the country of Canada with the subsidies, with CSIS, with the government agencies, where we looked and seen the National Energy Board leak documents showing that the First Nations are adversaries and the pipeline owners are allies. I seen how Harper has taken their decision of the National Energy Board, who's going to listen to the interveners who are going to say that they don't want it. Where Lummi, Tulalip, Swinomish, and Squamish are part of that, is Tsleil-Wautuuth, many nations and many organizations, many people in Canada that are standing up and applying to be interveners. Then how Harper turned that around and said, I have the last choice on that. So even if they disapprove, he could turn around and approve it. And I looked at all these things, and sometimes it made me really sad. It would be easy, you would think, for a nation that has people in poverty to take millions and millions of dollars and take their people out of poverty. There are people that's the Minister Oliver, when he was Minister of Environment, he said, why don't the First Nations take the money? They need it. I started to look at all these things and all these true facts. And I would get discouraged, I would get sad, I would lose sleep. When we started this, it was hard to get 20 people in a room in a community town hall meeting to try to tell the citizens of Canada that this isn't good. Then something shifted. We brought this to our community, and the spirit of what happened was too big. That we had representatives of the pipelines come and speak and say, this is what you'll get. People who knew about that. We had my friend Melina come down from the Alberta tar sands and to tell her hurtful story of how her auntie, how the children, how her relations, her first cousins are dying because of cancer. I heard stories of other people where they said they couldn't bath their children for more than 2 minutes at a time, or they'd start to get sick in cancer as well. I heard the stories that they can't drink the water, that they can't hunt their game, they can't fish their fish. Then I witnessed my mom when they said it's time to vote. Do you want to take the millions of dollars? Help our people come out of poverty? Or do you want to spend some of the little resources that we have and fight them in court? My mom stood up with other elders. Other elders said, when our relations are over there dying, that's reason enough for us to say no. The elder picked up their grandchild and said, this is why I'm going to say no for our future generations. And I'm so proud of my mom. She stood up and she said, when we vote no, not one of your butts are going to be in the seats. When we say no, you're going to stand up like our ancestors of old, like what we've been doing for thousands of years, fighting for this land, fighting for the people, fighting for our water and our fish. She said, when we vote, you're all going to say no. When we vote, she said, you're going to warrior up. And that's what they did. They warriored up. They stood up, and each and every one of them said no. 100% consensus, where each and every one of them said no. 100% consensus. At that moment, at that time, at that moment, I wept inside, and I said, no, there's hope. No, there's prayer put into what we're doing. When our people went down from 15,000 to 13 people, that spirit of those 13 people were strong. They pulled them through those hard times, and now we're thriving. Our spirit is strong, and it was contagious. Now it went to the point where 71% of British Columbians support the Tsleil-Wautuuth Nation, and sue in Canada for not consulting on these pipelines. Now there's hope, where I see and I understand when people have the true facts embedded in their hearts. Now I see and I understand when the people know the true facts of the destruction that this causes, that they'll want to make better choices for their future generations as well. Now I know in my heart what tells me that we're going to win, and I don't lose sleep over this anymore. Now I know in my heart, and I can say this with conviction like my ancestors of old, like my mom, like my son. He spoke in Seattle recently in a rally like this. My mom tells the story of my grandfather, Chieftain George. They said they're going to kick him off his land, and he said, I'll pick up my gun. I'll fight for the land. That's the only time I'll fight is for that. And my mom said the same thing. She understands what he means now. My son is 17, and he said, you know what? In his speech, he said, that's not going to happen. My grandma doesn't have to risk her life. I will step it up like my father and my grandfather, and I'll be a warrior, and I'll protect our land. I will protect my grandma. I will protect our water. And what's beautiful, and that's what fed me as well. We need the youth like that to stand up for their own future generations as well. So what I believe, like I said, when we start to share that bullshit propaganda that the media puts out, we know that these oil companies making $71 million a day, they come into the towns and the cities and they buy the media. They buy the politicians. And they start to create their own policies that they consistently break and harm our lands and harm our waters. I know here in the United States, there's 2.2 million miles of kilometers of oil and gas pipelines where there's 20 spills a day. We have to wake up the nation. We have to wake up the people. We have to help them to understand the truth of what's going on. That we have to have some choices that have to be made to have a better future for our future generations. Right in this water right here, my children didn't experience what I experienced. As a Tsleil-Wautuuth people of Vancouver Inlet, that's the lineage of where we come from. That means the people of the inlet. When I was small and when I was young, I swam in that water. When the tide went out, we ate out of the water. I did ceremony in the water, and that's an intimate relationship that I have from the lineage of where I come from in that water. And all of our teachings come from there. Our fundamentals of humanity, of love and honor and respect and dignity, pride, compassion, understanding, and truth. We make decisions from there. All of us have children or somebody we love, and when they're hurt, sometimes we cry with them. And that's when our land is hurt, and we cry with our land. Harper, when he found out that Tekola won the Supreme Court decision, he loved his money and power so much. Unlike me, when I hold my children and they're hurt and I cry with them, that's how much I love my children. He doesn't even care about his children because he's making these decisions that aren't creating a future for their future generations. What he cared about and what he cried about is when the Tekola won that Supreme Court decision, he went in his office and cried. That's what he cares about. I went out and celebrated. I went out and celebrated. So with that, because what we've been saying all along, because they're too dysfunctional, because they're greed, that's what we say, because they're too dysfunctional about their power that they want, their control that they want, their children are part of the human race. That little baby who they should be crying for because they're not going to experience the love that I got out of the water or the food that I got out of the water. They're not looking out for that because they're too dysfunctional and they don't know how to do it. You and me and each and every one of us will do it for them. We will make a better earth for them. And the teachings of where we come from, the teachings where we come from, allow me to stand here with conviction. And the story that I just told is reality. Those facts are real. But our teachings are real, and the Spirit's real, and their prayers are real, and that gives me strength. Those teachings that I live by the best I can allow me to stand here with conviction and happily say, as a fact, whatever it takes, we will not let those pipelines and tankers and those tar sand products come through our territories. Osia.